today I am being joined by my good friend, Ricardo Liborio. If you do not know who Ricardo Liborio is, you'll learn a little bit more about him today, but definitely take out a moment and Google his name. Liborio is a original team member of Carlson Gracie, one of the most elite Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu teams, competitive teams ever to exist. Has put out tremendous level of high-level fighters such as Vitor Belfort, Mario Sperry, Murilo Bustamante, Ricardo De La Riva, as well as many, many more. Master Liborio was one of the original founders of Brazilian Top Team, the original founder and head coach of American Top Team. He's a multi-level world champion and regarded as one of the best jiu-jitsu practitioners of all time and one of the most elite MMA coaches of all time. And that aside, he is a amazingly humble and wonderful human being, father, husband, and friend. And he's been interviewed hundreds of times throughout a variety of media resources, but our podcast, of course, likes to take things on a little bit of a different approach. And instead of just speaking about jiu-jitsu and MMA, we wanted to talk more about who Ricardo Liborio is, the man, what it was like growing up in Rio de Janeiro, Brazil, how he balances out his traveling schedule, and much more. I really hope you enjoy today's sit-down with none other than martial arts and Brazilian jiu-jitsu legend, Ricardo Liborio. Hello, and welcome back to another episode of Life's Black Belts. Once again, I'm your host, Eric Alders, and it is my absolute honor and privilege to be joined by someone that is very well known, not only in the martial arts and Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu world, but worldwide. The person that I'm bringing on is often regarded as a pioneer and legend in martial arts, but most importantly, I'm bringing him on because I think he is just one of the nicest, most humble human beings that I've had a chance to know, and it's a pleasure to say that over the last 10 years or so that we've become friends. So we're going to go into some more details shortly, but it is my honor and privilege once again to introduce none other than Ricardo Liborio. How are you, sir?
Oh, my good friend, Master Eric Alders. It's a pleasure,
yes, sir,
to be here. I really appreciate you bring me in. You know?
Thank you, sir. Now, one of the reasons that I want to bring you on is I've, in addition to knowing you personally, I'm a big fan of yours, and I've seen, a lot of interviews both via magazine, on TV, and everyone seems to always ask you a lot of the familiar questions about your jiu-jitsu background, Team Carlson Gracie, your MMA career, and all that is definitely a big part of who you are, but the kind of the purpose and concept behind the show is that when you take that away, that is just a role that you happen to play in life and happens to be a role that's made you very well recognized. But there's a man behind that. There's a man that takes that philosophy that's made you successful in your career that has also hours and hours a day that's just living his life as a husband and as a father and as a human being. And that's the guy that I would like everyone to meet more today, the man that I know very well. And I hopefully during this interview we'll learn more about you. So I'd like to start off at the beginning, sir. I think a lot of people are familiar with the fact that you were born in Rio de Janeiro, Brazil. But would you take me back just briefly when you were growing up in Brazil? Just a quick couple questions for you. Did you have any brothers or sisters that were growing up, or were you an only child?
I was born in Rio de Janeiro, Brazil, on July 13th, 1967. I'm going on 51 years now. Yes, I do have a sister, older sister, who actually lives in Holland right now. And actually, I say right now, my sister moved to Europe from, 20-something years ago, 30 years ago, something like that. It's been a while. And her life has been in Europe from Sweden and Germany and what else? In Holland now. So she's very well-traveled, and she's a fan of languages. My sister, love her dearly. And my brother, my youngest brother, who is still living in Rio. I tried to get this guy moving to the United States so many times, but he never wanted to. He always was so connected to nature and the lifestyle in Rio de Janeiro, Brazil, he never ever wanted to move here. I actually have difficulties actually to make him come and visit, you know? And I miss that. I miss them closer to my kids. You know, the kids grow up with aunts and uncles. I have this huge family in Brazil, and I miss that. I feel like it would be amazing if my kids actually had the chance and the privilege to grow up with parents, not just the parents, but also this family close by, and they didn't. But life goes on, you know.
Absolutely,
life goes on.
Yeah, I mean, you're definitely always come across as a family man. So I mean, I'm very close with my brother and my parents, but not so well known with my cousins and extended family. But it's got to be challenging for you because I know how close you are as a family man currently.
Yeah.
Did your siblings ever get involved with the martial arts at all, or was that just you?
My brother is actually a brown belt from De La Riva. He started training.
Oh wow!
My brother actually was a national champion. He went to college at Gama Filho. He's a lawyer, and he competed in jiu-jitsu, and he was a national champion there at the brown belt. It was pretty cool, though. So he followed some steps. He stopped because his career demanded. So he never went to black belt. I give him trouble every time I see him because of that, too. But
I'm sure.
He did. And my sister did a little bit of a training, but never, I don't think I ever passed a white belt. But my nephew, my nephew lives here in the United States. My nephew is a world champion, and he won so many local events from Miami Opens and Atlanta Opens and all the Opens that he competed. He did always place it. He's going to compete at the Masters, and he's going to compete at the Nationals in July right now. So he's active competitor. He won all the Nagas and ADCC qualifiers. This kid is pretty good. So his career is involved in martial arts. And
he must run in their family, the world champions.
Oh, yeah. He's really good. Dedicated guy. Really, he loves to train. His life is this.
Well, I believe from past conversations that I learned that you had started around 4 or 5 years old, and I think it was judo. Is that correct?
Correct. I started 4 years old in judo. At the time, jiu-jitsu, it was up to today. Jiu-jitsu is still pretty much adult martial arts. And it's one of my missions to try to reverse that, to try to actually bring martial arts and a more academic and a more educational side of jiu-jitsu to kids. But yeah, I started with 4 years old in judo. Judo was very popular in Brazil. We started in judo, and sometimes we progressed to other martial arts. And that's what I did. Start with 4. But I never let it go martial arts. It always was my passion. I always loved martial arts. And from judo, I evolved into some taekwondo. And from taekwondo, boxing, and boxing, jiu-jitsu, where I never stopped. But I always was connected to martial arts. I used to say that martial arts and surfing, it was always my passions. I always loved. I loved to watch. I loved to practice. And never was extremely connected to the team sports. But at the same time, I still think that jiu-jitsu is extremely team-oriented, especially jiu-jitsu, because it's pretty traditional and cultural in jiu-jitsu that guys from the same team don't compete on the finals. So they strike the roll the dice to see who is a champion. I don't know if I agree with that. But it creates bonding, It creates that kind of environment that, okay, I'm going to train with you, but I know that in the end, it's going to be some sort of other competition that's going to define who is going to really actually be the winner, which is create some bonding, create some trust, like it or not. You know that you're never going to compete against or you're not supposed to compete against your teammate. Create some bonding that when you compete, sometimes you don't show, especially in training, you don't show as much as you could, knowing that it's a possibility that you guys compete in the end, at least in the finals. And that's happened a lot. I saw this a lot. things changes a lot. But when I start jiu-jitsu, it's unheard of anybody from the same team, the same academy, actually compete against each other in a final of the event.
Now, what got you, and well, I'm assuming at 4 years old, it's obviously a decision that your parents wanted you to get involved with. Did your father or mother have experience, or what was the initial getting you and your siblings involved with the martial arts? Was it just because it was another activity, or were you expressing interest that young to try it out, or what? Where did it start from?
I think the decision was most likely, like I said, it's pretty cultural in Brazil that you put the kids in martial arts when they're young, like judo. And nowadays, I see the Brazilian jiu-jitsu growing up and exponentially as a kid's martial arts preference. But at my time, it was judo, and the girl, it would preferably, go to a dance like ballet or jazz or something like this. This is when you start. And judo being a martial arts creates a lot of bonding in all the values you can imagine, from respect and control and determination, discipline, loyalty, responsibility, all this. I think that my parents really saw this at young age, that this is reflecting my posture and my conduct. And I think this has helped me a lot just for the fact that I started young.
Well, absolutely. I mean, I started at 8 years old as well, and I've been teaching for the last, about 24 years, and I had an opportunity to work with tons of kids from a young age up. And as you know, as an instructor, it is just transforming in a positive way to what it could do from the young to teenagers to adults, and how you could also carry that over into your regular life as well. Now, I'm curious because obviously we were both born in two different countries, and obviously you've been in the U.S. for a long time. What was life like back, if you could take me back to your earlier youth, prior to jiu-jitsu, I would like to start with. What was it like growing up in Rio de Janeiro at that time, or maybe how it compares to how it is today? But what was it like growing up now that you've had an ability to compare it with life in the U.S. and raising children here?
Well, it's not easy. Rio de Janeiro and the United States have different realities. Like for example, geographically, Rio is close to the ocean, and you have the hills right behind it. It's a beautiful place to go see it and visit. It's just amazing. It's just beautiful, wonderful. We have the rainforest. We have all these mountains. It's so pretty close. 30 minutes away from the center of Rio de Janeiro, you can drive up, miles inside the mountain, and it's just fantastic. But at the same time, you see the mountains in Rio are taken by what we call the favelas, which is the slums, and the favelas are crowded with poor people, with less education, let's put it this way, less chances, where it creates a very tight environment. And it's very small, especially in Rio. We see the favelas and what do we call the asphalt, the pavement, right? The asphalt.
Right.
There are, all those buildings that cost sometimes millions of dollars, and you live in really, literally yards from the slums, the favelas, which is, you got to understand this. I feel fortunate to live in a situation like that. So you really don't pass or you don't judge as much as when you have a lot of separation. All right. You see, in Rio de Janeiro, the color of the skin is not really a problem. It is your socioeconomic situation that create the status and that put you in certain what you can call this privilege. All right, you go to schools there if you live in a certain areas like this buildings and this nice house, which is for the middle and upper classes, while the schools for the favelas are completely different. So the level of education is extremely different. Let's put it this way. Somebody who lives in a favela, who lives also with the minimum wage, is probably making right now $300 or $400 a month.
Wow.
But at the same time, from the middle class, if you have a little bit more education, you're probably living there with the minimum base of $3,000 a month. So you see the different level. You know, your $400 a month, you still cannot live properly. You still cannot, pay for your kids' tuition to go to a good school or put food on the table or get a good transportation system. All this, at the same time, with $3,000, you can live that. You can live in a nice house. You can put your kids to school, have a nice car, all this, but it creates a clash of a socioeconomical layers that when you get out of the favela, who is extremely poor and violent, and like I said, 100 yards from that, you have somebody living. We have all this privilege of living in a good place and eating the good food and going to the good school. Of course, it's going to have violence. And the number of people who live in a favela is way bigger than the number of people that live in the middle class and the upper class, places, complexes. Let's put it this way. They call condominiums there. And it creates a huge separation. The violence is so raw. And the violence has everything to do on how you direct your attention to a sport like jiu-jitsu. Why? Because creates self-insurance. You're ready for things like that. I think you're way more ready in Rio de Janeiro for a situation of raw violence than here in America. Yeah?
A totally different type of environment that you grew up in, which I would imagine really, toughened you up. And I'm sure you have some experiences as a youth. And then being involved with martial arts so young, is it something that was constantly being tested when you weren't inside the dojo, when you were out at the beach? Was it constantly people trying to test out your skills if they knew that you had trained, or were you able to kind of avoid that type of altercation?
No, you avoid altercation in any way. You try to avoid altercation, especially because of that. You got to understand that you have people there that have absolutely nothing to lose. There's kids in the favelas. They know that the only way out is to go to the drug trafficking or robbery or some sort of violence to take money out of this upper classes that live in 100 yards away. And those kids don't mind. Believe me, it sounds crazy what I'm saying right now. Those kids don't mind to talk about that they're not going to live more than 20-something years old.
Wow, that's a horrible way to think.
Really horrible way to think, but it's true. And I said, man, how many times I heard of that? Man, I'm no good. I know I'm not going to live, a long life. This is people say. I heard this saying. Nobody's telling me, and they're okay with that. It's like they're living in a rush. They're living really fast, so they know that they're get involved with a situation like that, they're going to die early. And believe me, I'm not just saying that. I know what I'm talking about here. I know exactly what I'm talking about. I know there's situations there with kids with 80 years old. They have 4 or 5 killings on their, on their back. I'm telling you, it's something insane, man. It's, but it's so raw. What I'm saying is this: don't try to be the tough guy there because they shoot you for nothing. They shoot you for your shoes. You know what I'm saying? There are situations that it's true, it's reality. I'm not just saying that.
So how did you, was it martial arts and the environment and friends that you kept? How were you able to navigate that environment growing up and stay safe?
Just stay safe is just number one. Just the fact that that physically you could beat up somebody. You don't have to have in your mind. You know when you can subject somebody, you can control somebody. You know that when you know how to fight, you know that you can defend yourself. This has helped you tremendously and you're confident. So I'm not going to be guessing what it can happen. I can punch this guy here. I can do this. No, I just completely, let it go in peace. How many times this happened to me in traffic there? People with some road rage into you and you know how to fight. And you say, man, it's all right, man. Just go ahead. Go live your life. But that. You have that reinsurance that you can kick people's ass and you don't do it because you choose not to. You don't need to reinsure yourself just to go there. Like I keep saying this thing. How many times I saw when you go to parties and kids that actually don't have the intelligence to approach the girls or to create awareness because they are academically or vocally smarter or interesting, to call the interest of people. They have to get into a fight so they can bring the attention to them. I have seen this a million times. You probably saw that too. That's the bully. That's the, so-called bully that needs that audience so they can actually feel important and then feel, the eyes on him. It's not verbally. It's not, it's not because the guy's comical or because, you know what I'm talking about here.
Of course. I think it's one of the myths that a lot of people that aren't involved with martial arts believe. Parents that come in think that if they train their son or daughter that it's going to create more violence, and the exact opposite, as you know, is true, because as you build confidence in yourself, like you're saying, you have a less reason to go out there and try to quote unquote prove yourself. It's often the people that have a low self-esteem that have to really stand up and get loud and go out there and fight.
Correct. How many times I saw this, especially in kids, adults not as much, but how many times you saw a guy who don't even know how to fight, but he ganged up. He put a group of guys together that probably don't know how to fight either, but they go there and they ganged up on somebody just feel important or get that reinsurance that we're talking about here, But besides that, training every day and tapping every day and passing through the process that you're not going to win everything. You start accepting more and be more confident about, your minus, your bad days. And you just get more and more ensured that you know where you can go with the martial arts. In a certain way that you can lose, but you're not going to be a loser. You know what I'm saying? That's the most important thing. I think the most important message for martial arts goes into you don't need to. The loser is the one who quits. Lose it, that doesn't mean that you're a loser. The guy who does not come back, that's the one there's a loser because he doesn't have mental strength or spiritual strength, or his ego is he thinks so much of himself that he cannot lose. It's not losing. You're losing training. You lose when you're learning. You're losing when you're sick. You lose when you're depressed. Well, in life, you're going to lose. Doesn't matter who do you think you are. The most important people in the world, they lose. But your ability to overcome.
Well, that's what I think martial arts, for you and for I, has brought out, that ability of understanding what it's like to be humbled, what it's like to show up every day, even if you're tired, and grind and pick yourself up and keep going. So then when you're going through life and you have financial stress or social stress, you can kind of relate to what it was like onto the mat. And you could realize that if you just kind of keep waking up every day and keep pushing hard, you're going to have good days and bad days, but you're going to keep moving forward. And that's they're parallel.
It's the determination of overcoming obstacles, and you reach your goals. You have to do it. And this is not, you have to overcome so many things. You have to overcome fear. You are not born with courage. Fear is always there. When you compete, fear is always there. It's not that you don't have a fear. I don't know one professional high-level fighter doesn't step there that doesn't have fear. Everybody has fear. Not fear to getting hurt. And it's way more fear than lose, to be embarrassed in front of people. That's why people don't compete. But at the same time, when you know that you can survive those things, when you know that you can overcome the worst, the lowest part, and you can come back and rebuild again, man, that's the beauty of everything. You know you can rebuild yourself. You know you can come back again, even at the lowest of the lowest.
It's priceless. It really is.
Priceless. This is priceless, And
can I ask you a question, sir? Going just back to where I was going over your history when you were young. You mentioned you did judo, then taekwondo, boxing, and as a teenager, you got into jiu-jitsu. What made you make the switch from those previous martial arts to switching over to Brazilian jiu-jitsu, which is what you then, took off with?
See, that when I was like 15 years old, 14, 15 years old, my first girlfriend, Patricia, right? And I went to a barbecue in her house, and her uncle that ended up, being my uncle, and I call him Uncle Rosado up to today, was a black belt at the time of Carlson Gracie. Rosado saw me there at the barbecue and he said, "Hey man, you look strong, stocky. He's got a perfect build for jiu-jitsu." And I didn't even know what jiu-jitsu was. So I say, "You come in Monday at Carlson Gracie and I'm going to present you to Carlson. You're going to start training there." And he put me under the wing. Nowadays, this guy is the only red belt from Carlson Gracie. So Rosado brought me in, put me under the wing, introduced me to the guys. So when I went to Carlson, I was introduced to like his nephew. And I never stopped from there. But also I never stopped because that thing was so physically, that was so easier for me. I couldn't read there. I had very extreme ability to, facilitate the understanding of jiu-jitsu moves and tactics and learning. I always love it. I just felt like it was like a glove from my hand. And I knew everybody because Rosado brought me in, so it was a perfect fit. That was like, okay, I found my tribe here, And I grew up in that environment. I grew up in an environment of a training in BJJ and grew up with the same values and this brotherhood. And I was part of something. And this is for me was exactly what I needed up to today. That's my tribe. That's my people. That's my industry. That's my society, my community. That's my everything.
Well, I mean, you had the opportunity to train with one of the greatest, Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu instructors and practitioners of all time in Carlson Gracie, let alone your teammates are the names in the industry from, Ricardo De La Riva and Vitor Belfort, Mario Sperry, and on and on and on and on. When did you really, you took to it very quickly, and I've been training now in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu myself for the last 7 years, so I could relate as a lifelong martial artist how stimulating Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu is to both my mind and my body, and how intrigued I am and how hooked I am on it now. At what point did you realize that it was something that you were really good at, or you stood out from the classmates as a really good Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu practitioner? Was that early on, or was that like in the middle of your training, or when?
I'll tell you this. For me, it was different this way. I started competing 2 months after. Like they had this nationals beginners. They had to be a blue belt to compete. And in 2 months, I got my blue belt. In 2 months, it's 15 years old. I got my blue belt and I competed in the nationals was the state championship for beginners. And I won. And I was competing against adult guys. And I was a 16-year-old kid, 15-year-old, 16-year-old kid. Which was great, but left me in the blue belt for at least 5 or 6 years. So De La Riva actually vouched for me. De La Riva was teaching the classes there also at Carlson. He was there, and me and De La Riva were extremely good friends right at the get-go. And we were always together. And De La Riva, we started training together. We started learning together because there's another thing too. Rosado, it's also cousin or uncle of De La Riva's wife. So this was almost like an in family. We're hanging out together. We're doing everything together. I grew up with De La Riva. And De La Riva taught me a lot. And we trained together a lot. And we were all under Carlson and Rosado. And this was extremely, it was a facilitator for me to learn more. And, and Mary myself was one of the best images you can ever have is Ricardo De La Riva. Besides being an amazing competitor and coach and professor, he's one of the most beautiful human beings that I ever met in my life. Who knows De La Riva knows what I'm talking about here. De La Riva is like water. If you don't like water, my friend, you have a problem. The problem is in you. It's not in him. It's more likely. So I grew up with De La Riva, and in 2 months, De La Riva vouched for me and said, "Man, this Liborio is, it's just doing so well. We should have given him a belt so he can compete." And Carlson said, "All right, I'm giving him a black belt, but give him the blue belt." So he gave me the blue belt, and I started competing from there. I compete so much. And yeah, I stayed in blue belt at least for 6 years, 5 or 6 years. So since the get-go, since the beginning, I knew that jiu-jitsu was a special for me.
Well, after that win, I'm sure that you were absolutely hooked to that feeling of, because I mean, it does have that side to it where it could make you feel strong and confident and powerful that you were able to, especially go against grown men that were much older than you. And you're talking about, De La Hiva and how nice he is, and knowing you, I know how a sweet, humble man you are. Is this a culture that was created at the Carlson Gracie Academy? Because on one end, you're looking at some absolute killers, some of the toughest jiu-jitsu practitioners and competitors ever. But on the other end, there's some of the nicest, most humble. Like, how were the egos kept in check with so many type A dominant athletes that were there? How did that come about?
Carson. That was all Carson, man. Carson was a mentor. He had a lot of things he had done it to actually instigate the competition. He never actually, put, burn out, fights. But he always goes there and say, yeah, for you guys to make sure that you're the first one to go there and represent my flag, you got to be the best. So he kind of knew how to push and pull. You know what I'm saying? He used to how to put ice and fire at the same time. He was a great reader of personalities. So that helps a lot to create that competitive environment that people do actually don't kill themselves. But I gotta say that was big wars that I saw. That some of the biggest and most beautiful matches that I saw was actually inside the Carlson Gracie team walls instead of just in competition. Usually at my time, the guy who actually wins the spot of the weight division in the belt ranking probably will be the champion of that weight division and belt ranking system. And I saw this a million times. Carlson was the first one to actually bring up the best BJJ team in the world and transforming turns into the best MMA team in the world. At the time, even Vale Tudo. Yeah.
So it's an incredible venture to both train a high-level competitive athlete, but while at the same time maintaining that martial arts approach of maintaining that humble, respectful family unity that's there, which is something that I think that goes hand in hand with martial arts. And for me, and I would imagine for you as well, has followed you throughout your life.
Oh, my whole life. That's my whole life. There's no doubt about it. This is always was what is the most important thing. We always see that as a real true family. For whoever need our help, we're going to be there for. Just stick together. That's like they say. That's a good gang, right? That's a good place to be. That's what it is. So and one of the reasons also that I did martial arts. It was everything related to be part of this tribe.
Now, if I'm not mistaken, I don't know what age you're at. I remember we've had, I think we go back about 10 years now, and we've had some great conversations both on the mat and driving in the car talking with each other. And I think I have a memory of you talking about at one point when you were training or teaching that you had to get a full-time job. I believe it was at a bank, and you would go train on your breaks or something similar. I'm trying to remember the story exactly, but am I on track? There was something similar to that?
Oh, I always train early in the morning. This is early in the morning. I had a full-time job in a bank that I have to be there at 9 o'clock in the morning up to 6 o'clock afternoon. And I wake up 5 o'clock in the morning and go train at De La Hiva at 7, go back to De La Hiva at 7 to 8 and give me 1 hour to shower and get to work at 9. And in the middle, Carlson has a training at noon that I used to rush to eat my lunch hidden from everybody else so I could get my motorcycle and get to the Carlson race at noon. And after that, I had a college at least 3 days a week. And between that and night, I used to rush to Carlson race to train at night. So I'm always training 3 times a week, 3 times a day, every day, including Saturdays. I was doing full-time everything, full-time work and a full-time training, and I was able to control this pretty well. But I love it. It was not an effort. It was something that if I didn't have that, I'll go crazy. But so it was pretty easy.
Full-time job, college, and full-time training. And you said you also enjoyed surfing. So in there somewhere you were able to have a social life and enjoy, or not so much?
Oh yeah, no, surfing is usually Sundays. That's what you break down. It's a great thing about Brazil and Rio. Rio, not Brazil. Rio is surrounded with beaches. So Sundays you used to go there and you meet everybody. You meet all your friends there. It doesn't matter how rich or poor you are. The beach is the most democratic place. Nobody paid to go there, and we all meet each other over there. So it was the place to go to relax and bring the family and friends together. So Sunday was our place to surf and hanging out with our friends at the beach. And we have done this since we were kids. We grew up there. We grew up the beach, you know. And yeah, surfing and training jiu-jitsu is what every teenager of my time, used to do. I think it's still the same.
Now, at what point were you moving up to the higher level where you started entering the national or world scene with your competition? Was that at black belt, or did you compete at that level prior?
Say it again.
When you started getting involved more, competing at like a national or world level, was that only when you were a black belt, or did you compete at that level as purple, brown, etc.?
I was competing at the highest level. The difference is the federation, the IBJJF and the CBJJ was created later in the days. The first world championships for BJJ was in 1996. So there is a gap of organizations like this sort, like the IBJJF, the institution, the World Championships, the Nationals, the Pan Americans, the Europeans, as we see it today. So there was a lack of a competition of that sort. So there's a whole entire generation that was excluded the opportunities to be world champions there.
So some of the best people that you had a chance to train with never had the opportunity to test their skills like they can today.
Some of my biggest, heroes. There was a Carlson Gracie competitors like Pichochinho and Pinduca. And De La Riva itself, he never had, he was a little bit older. He was 3 years older than me. So it was a little bit on a catch up that they didn't have the chance to compete, in a young age on this world championships, which is really, it's pity, but it is what it is. This generation, you know how it is, the sport evolves so much. Nowadays, you have quality competitors from every country on the black belt level, which is a natural growth of the sport. And at my time, jiu-jitsu was reduced to the south zone of Rio, and it's this monstrosity as it is today, the biggest and the most, it's the most growing sport, together with MMA that's out there.
Oh, absolutely. Now, you were also, in addition to your teammates, you're underneath the, the lineage of Carlson Gracie, and know a lot of people that watch the UFC and Bellator are obviously very familiar with, Royce Gracie, who really brought the UFC to the States. But, you're going back to living this lifestyle for years. And these are all the same people that you're going to school with and living in town with and training with. Even though that name is super strong, you've mentioned a bunch of names that are right up there with the Gracies. I know they're very well known, obviously, but you're side by side on the mat with all these same guys that are also legends today.
Oh yeah, no, all those guys there, highest level in BJJ and MMA. It's like one of my best friends ever, and I lived with this guy for 5 years, Murilo Bustamante, and I was there when he was the first Brazilian to actually win the UFC title. When the Zuffa actually created the title and the belt per weight category, Murilo was the first Brazilian to win the belt from Dave Monet, if I'm not wrong. And I was there with him. Man, it was amazing, amazing feeling, amazing sensation. One of the most beautiful memories that I ever had in my life. And this guy grew up with me. We were kids. I remember when we were real little, got his first motorcycle, and he comes with his all beat up car and the first girlfriend. We all remember all this. We grew up together. And I'm friends with this guy to today. Every time I go to Brazil, I talk to him. Every time he comes to the United States, I constantly talk to him. This is it is a coincidence that we are in the same industry, but we're friends way beyond that.
Well, if I'm not mistaken, in Murillo, isn't that you guys together helped to found Brazilian Top Team? Is that correct?
Yeah, Murillo is the founder with me at the Brazilian Top Team. Yes.
And Brazilian Top Team is still around today and still doing, is regarded as one of the better teams that are out there for sure. Is he still overseeing Brazilian Top Team?
Oh, yeah. Murillo is the owner, the sole owner of Brazilian Top Team now. That's one of my best friends. I grew up with him, as De La Riva too. It's just, it is what it is. We grew up together before we have any potential to be world champions or anything like that. It's just not. We're not there because of the world championship belts or because money or career. We're there because of the love for the sport, love for Carlson, love for our friends and family that was considered there. It was way beyond that. Is the whole vision is different. I feel fortunate to be part of an industry that actually provides for my family and give me a quality life. But at the same time, I was doing this for love and free. I'm not saying that that's what it should be, but if I'm telling you that I have the passion, I give it this much. My father worked in a bank and he got 2 degrees. And my father, when he retired, he was so involved in his passion for the bank. It was such a strong bond that when he retired, he died 5 years later. What I do and what I have is passion. I know me in old age, I will never retire. I'm always going to be around this. I'm always going to be around the match. I was always going to be helping people. I was always going to be learning. I was going to be sharing. So I have a passion for something. My father had a passion, but unfortunately, he cannot work in the bank forever. You understand what I'm saying? It's different. What do we have as passions? It's going to worth a lot when we're at old age. Believe it or not. Because our passion would never go away. It would never go away. It's just going to get stronger and stronger. And people that I see that needs to retirement plan for careers, it's a different world. I would never retire. Makes sense what I'm saying? I would never retire. I do this because I love it so much. I love to be around people. I love to help people. I love to be around teaching people. I like to see a guy coming from zero to hero. And that's it. And this is going to keep me alive, going to keep me young, But that's not everybody who has the same fortune that we do.
Well, I remember even speaking to a lot during training, and you would say, don't necessarily go into this if you want to be rich, but the longer you do it, you'll realize how wealthy you truly are. And I think that's kind of what you're bringing up right now, is that the ability to influence those around us positively, to give back to the community, to maintain your own training and the health and vitality that martial arts brings, the relationships and these lifelong, you're talking about lifelong bonds that you've had since you're a kid to this day, that these people are still your best friends. And anyone that's made it through life, there's tons of situations and trials and tribulations that we all go through. People move, things happen, and sometimes people are pulled apart from each other. But maintaining these friendships since you're a child, I think, is a testament to the character of the man that you are. That's something that not a lot of people can really say that they are able to handle. They're able to maintain a friendship for as long as you have. And you think that connects back to being a lifelong martial artist and how you came up through Carlson Gracie, and I'm sure how your parents have raised you. Is that correct?
Yeah, 100%. People sometimes, and I think we got to work on this. Eric, that sometimes you struggle not just to make the money or struggle sometimes to try to figure out a way that your kids that they see the natural path of a society built up, the blueprint that's out there right now that you have to study in the best schools, graduate in college, get a job, and build up a career some way somehow. That's the path that you see the majority of the parents. If you go to schools, oh, what's your job? What do you do? Oh, I'm a nurse. Oh, I'm doing this. Well, what we did is so specialized, and we love it so much that maybe it's hard for parents and family to understand because it's not as gratifying to be as a doctor or a lawyer that makes $300, $500 an hour. It's not about this. But in one point, that lawyer is going to try to retire. And if he doesn't have a passion, it's going to be a problem for him. What I say is, I will never retire. Even if I retire of teaching classes because my body doesn't allow me, I can go there and still put my input when I'm 9 years old or so. This is the life that I wanted for myself until the day I pass, And I know that I'm going to be always involved with what I do, always involved in martial arts. So I'm buying life, even if the money is not going as working at Wall Street or real estate. But this quality of life is going to be there, especially when you get old.
Well, it's something that seems to be connected on a much deeper level. Like, for you and I know other people that are as involved, is it almost, it touches your soul in a certain way. And that's how you know it's a part of who you are, I want to take a minute out, though. We went through a little bit of your time in Brazil. We talked about the Brazilian top team, and then you came to the United States. I know you started up American Top Team, but aside from talking about that, what was it like going from Brazil to moving to a country you never lived in before and learning an entirely new language? That had to be extremely challenging, yet something else you were able to overcome.
Yeah, no, you see that there was definitely culture differences, but I'm from the south zone of Rio, which is it's easier adaptation. The food is very similar, except for the rice and beans, but you eat the same chicken, you eat the same pasta, and you know what I'm saying? It's a little bit different. If you go to the north of the country, Brazil, the spices and the type of food is different than in the south zone. The south zone was kind of colonized by the Europeans. The family comes from Portuguese / Italian. So we grew up with this pasta and all these foods that actually is not too different than what we eat here in America. Number two is you listen to the same music, except for a couple guys from the slums, like the favelas, that use a lot of popular songs like Samba. But the rhythm's almost the same from rock and roll and pop songs. You listen to the same music, a lot of American music there. So it wasn't that different, And like I said, the way I lived there in South Zone, it was related completely to training and home. So I didn't change much when I moved here. It makes sense to you. So it was easy adaptation. And I knew one thing. I knew that the United States is the capital of the world. If BJJ and MMA works in the United States, it's going to work all over the world. And I knew it. I knew it that we have a chance to grow. Especially when we create American Top Team, come with the previous experience of Brazilian Top Team and Carlson Gracie. I knew there was a baby whale that we're going to grow fast. We got definitely lucky in so many ways when the UFC reality show came in, and there was a boom of MMA on the prime time, and everybody started to know what MMA was, and we were there. We were ready. We were training guys and producing high-level fighters. In BJJ too. BJJ grew so much because of MMA also. But I follow up this from the beginning, from the get-go. So I knew it for sure that it will be big. I didn't know which way, but I knew it would be big, And that's what happened. And when I moved to the United States, I'd have the vision, and I still have the vision. I still have a lot of things to accomplish here. So it wasn't that hard for me. Let's put it this way. And I love this country, and this country gave me my family, all my girls. I raised a family here, and I love them so dearly. I consider America my country, and that's what it is. I'm not going anywhere.
Well, let's talk about that for a second, because we've covered a little bit of your training and, not only growing through the Carlson Grayson Academy, starting Brazilian top team, making that successful, moving to a new country, starting American top team and making that successful, and balancing all of this somehow and maintaining a really humble way of thinking. How do you balance your life with eventually becoming a father and a husband while having this really big career that's pulling you in a lot of different directions?
It's not easy to actually travel the way I used to travel, or it's still traveling a lot. It used to be way worse with all the weekends take it by competitions or seminars or trips. So I grew up a lot traveling, but during the week I try to compensate. My wife used to be working at the what do you call it, the after school program inside, so I could able to see them all the time. Bella was there every day. I was having lunch with her. I was seeing them all the time, and at the time that goes at night was just the prime time. I used to teach there, and I see them going, but I have there's always this connection, and actually, it's a pretty interesting thing. I want to go back there. How do you balance this? It's not easy. The life that I have, it is not full of a routine. Let's put it this way. I have to travel. I just got back from Saudi Arabia. I went to Maine and Boston. I got back from 2 weeks trip, and I have to go to Australia the next week. I have to go to California, and California to Australia. It's a crazy life in terms of traveling, but I'm on a mission, and I have the vision, and I'm going to make it happen. There's no way. My family is supportive of that. They know that I have to do this. They know there's not a lot of people that can't do this, that have the message to spread around. They have the vision, and that, so they know that I have to work this way. It's not pleasure sometimes, but it's something that have to be done. To spread the word of the sport and help people and make sure that the new projects are coming along. So, yeah, it's not easy.
It can't be, but I know that you have a lot of passion for your role as a father and as a husband. And I don't get to see you daily, but I can imagine that you approach those roles with the exact same passion that you have your martial arts career. So when you're not, the world traveler or giving seminars everywhere, what's a day when you're just normal Ricardo Liborio hanging at home with your family? Like, what do you love to do outside of martial arts, since it takes up so much of your time?
Well, I like to spend time with family. I like to spend time with my daughters. I like to spend time watching movies and relaxing. I like to sleep in my own bed. That's another thing, too. I sleep in so many different beds and hotel rooms, and when I come home, I just like to take my time. So this is what I do. I have a very frugal life, and I do what I love. So there's not much, there's not much that that takes me away from the vision and the path that I have to go. And that's basically it. It's like I say, my life always was, and I'm so fortunate to say that I have a beautiful life in terms of it's going to school, academy, and learning and training to help people to go back home. That's what it is. I never was a party guy, bigger party guy, or never was taken into much materialistic things. I like people more than I like things. Let's put it this way.
You like to spend your time with the things that really are bringing value to you, which is really the relationships of your friends and your family. Now, I know I don't have you for much longer. So just real quick, what are you currently up to? You talked about you still have things that you want to accomplish, and you can make it as brief as you want to. But what is next after accomplishing so much and winning so many championships? What is your next goal?
Oh, there's a surprise there. We're working hard, not just me, but we are working hard and come up with new things and new ideas for the martial arts industry.
Very good. So
news will come.
All right, so
soon.
we'll keep it top secret then. So let's do this then, sir, because I know you have a very tight schedule. If someone wants to follow you a little bit more online, I know that you're on social media. What are the best ways for them to find you online and follow what you're up to every day?
I think Instagram is the best way to go. I have Instagram and Facebook. I'm there all the time. So it's I could go Ricardo Liborio, which is Liborio BJJ, and pretty soon you guys are going to be hearing new things, and we have big surprises.
Excellent. Well, listen, I don't want to keep you too long, sir. If possible, there's so much more I'd like to cover in the future. I would love to have you back on again. And it's always a pleasure to spend time with you as a martial artist. When I first had a chance to meet you and work with you, I was absolutely humbled and honored with the opportunity. And very quickly went from that to being pulled in like family. And I've been at multiple events with you, and you've always taken the time out to be cordial and spend time and give me your words of wisdom. And I'm privileged to have you as a friend in my life. And I thank you for coming on the show today.
Pastor Eric, let me tell you this. I always told you this. I'm just going to make this public. You are one of the people that I admire the most. You actually follow the path. That it's just the humbleness, and at the same time, your capabilities, your capacity, your teaching skills, your business, your family, and all this combined to make you a very, very amazing, beautiful person. And I'm proud to call you my friend. I'm just putting this public. You already know this, but it's true. It is all true. You know that. And we don't need to go there blowing up smoke too much. But that's the reality is, I do what I do because I have people like you that inspire me, and I know that we got to inspire other people too. So I appreciate your time. I love wanting to talk to you in any way, shape, or form. You know that. You know that's true. We don't need to go, we know our relationship, but on public right now, I just want to let you know that everybody appreciates what you're doing and spread the word of martial arts and helping people and teaching as you're doing right now with your podcast. So keep doing a good job. And I hope to see you soon.
Absolutely. I would love to see you soon, sir, and I will be in touch. And with that, we'll wrap it up. Ladies and gentlemen, today's Life's Black Belt, Mr. Ricardo Liborio.
Oh, thank you. Take care, guys.
Well, I hope you enjoyed that brief sit-down with Master Ricardo Liborio as much as I did. It was an absolute honor and privilege to have him on our show and to have him be the guest that kicks off episode number 10. I thought it was a pivotal point to reach in our podcast to get it to 10 episodes. I remember going back to episode number 1 wondering where this whole thing would go. I know there are some bumps along the way on audio. I promise you on some of those remote interviews where my voice sounds a little bit scratchy or out there, I have looked into it and figured out how to resolve that problem. So looking forward to all future episodes coming into you at a much higher audio quality. Anyway, if you would like to follow us and see more information and updates on our future podcasts, you could follow us online. The handle will be at Life's Black Belts. You'll find that handle on Twitter, on Facebook, on Instagram as well. Email lifesblackbelts@gmail.com for any thoughts, feedback, recommendations of future guests, and so on. I'll give you guys a little update. Even though the audience is small but growing, we have been listened to so far in 9 different countries, so that's something I'm very excited about. So please continue to share and post and repost any of our current or past episodes. And if you could take out just 2 minutes of your time and give us a positive rating on our Facebook page, and if possible on the iTunes podcasting site as well under Life's Black Belts, or any of the venues in which you listen to us, if they have an opportunity to review and rate us, those are specific ways to get the show in front of a larger audience. We look forward to bringing you our next episode. Until then, thank you so much for listening and have an amazing week.